John, do you think most successful men are operating out of survival mode without even realizing it?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. So it can look like, unfortunately, it looks a lot like high performance, right? All the things that they've been able to do and overcome and get that laser focus and just shut the rest of the world out to get where they are. That's great to get you where you're at, but it's not sustainable. So it's like just being on that autopilot mode, I found with high performers is extremely dangerous because autopilot allows you to shut a lot of things off and just keep going when things get tough. But if you don't build that awareness in, especially once you start getting, family leadership teams beneath you or with you, if you don't have that awareness, like you're going to burn out and you're going to crash and burn, man.
Yeah. What are some signs that a guy is potentially in this survival mode?
A lot of times it can be disguised as focus, right? Like I'm all in on my job and I'm just focused on my job. And it's like what I need to do to the next level. And, but then things are falling off on the wayside. They're not aware of the impact it's having on like maybe their circle of friends, if they have a faith community, especially like family, like wives, kids, things like that. They're unaware. They're just oblivious to how this relentless pursuit of progress is affecting them.
Is this a case of a guy running from pain, or maybe even a better way to phrase it? Like, is there trauma related to sometimes masking some of these things and saying so hyper focused on the production, the outcome, the focus, the clarity, the building in the career, and leaving a lot of the other things to the wayside?
Absolutely. It that focus on career and like kind of allows a lot of people, especially men, to step out of the pain they're experiencing. I was just talking with someone just this week and they said, 8 years ago, their life completely fell apart. Like marriage fell apart, business was not going well. So they went all into their new business and they came to realize that that was causing them to just focus only on their business because they didn't want to go home. So any excuse they could have to go into the office to just work on some stuff was actually an avoidance technique. And they said now they're in a much healthier place. Like they're rock solid now. But they said I developed so many bad habits during that tumultuous time of my life that now I'm trying to break them so I can maintain the sustainability and get a personal life back because now I no longer need to hide behind that creation of that business.
Is there balance here? And I don't even know if balance is the right word, because I believe that oftentimes to succeed, whether it's in business, an athletic endeavor, to succeed in anything, like it takes a larger percentage of you. So can somebody be successful in their business, in their career, in leading teams and building financial freedom and wealth, but also maintaining a healthy, like the give and take here? Like how can this be broken down?
Yeah, and this the key component there, Frank, is understanding how we can't be an autopilot. And what that means is like if we're in a building season of our business or maybe our kids are of a certain age where they just demand a lot more time and physical attention or mental attention, we need to be aware of that and recognize that this is a season that we're in and that's okay. I call them sprint seasons. So maybe you're in a sprint season in your business, like you're opening a new location and like, the refrigerators are coming in, the carpet guys are coming in and like you got opening in like 3 weeks. Well, hey, pedal to the metal on that. But the caveat to that is we need to communicate to those closest to us, whether that's our teams, our families, people depending on us, being like, hey, look, for the next month, this is what is my attention is going to look like, and set that level set. So that way people aren't left wondering that are on the outside, like, hey, where's John? Where's Frank at? They know like we're in it. And they're like, oh man, I remember them saying they're in it now. And that builds in grace. And that communication actually bridges a lot of gaps and creates a lot of potential heartache.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the season analogy there. I have a background in bodybuilding, right? And it was an identity I held. I still love the gym. I came up as an athlete, but it's like in bodybuilding, you're not in show prep 365 days out of the year, right? You may identify as a bodybuilder. People may see you as a bodybuilder. They may see you as more disciplined, more focused on these things, but it's like that intense show prep, 12, 16 weeks maximum. Like you don't have the mental bandwidth. You don't have the nervous system capacity to hold it. It's like same thing in business. Like sometimes we need sprints and we need to be aware that, hey, this is going to require a lot more time, energy, and focus. And like you said, the communication part that, hey, after this is done, Dad's going to be back. We'll go celebrate it, or we'll spend more time away. You work with executive leaders in coaching there. What are the themes that are coming up right now in your work that you're seeing leaders at the top struggle with most in 2026?
Separating the data from the drama, especially when they're looking at the case of business, like what their business looks like. A lot of times what I have found to be true with leaders, and I find myself, going towards this, if I allow myself to get into autopilot, is they look at numbers, like maybe for the first 2 weeks of the month. And they're like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. Like we're not, I feel like we're not where we should be. And as soon as I hear them say, I feel like, it's like, pop, pause. What do you mean you feel like? Like, what do the numbers say? Like, do you have less new clients coming in? Or the sales off? Like, what's the data say? Well, I haven't updated it for like 4 weeks. I'm like, okay, so it might feel like you're not as busy, but let's get into what the actual numbers say, because that's where the truth lies. And if you truly are, if the sales are off, cool. Now we know how much to adjust. But 9 times out of 10, Frank, like once we get into the numbers, they're like, oh, dude, we're doing way better than we thought. It's just, I'm not running around with my hair on fire. So I felt like I wasn't as busy. I said, well, you're not as busy. You're focused. Your attention is focused. So separating the data from the drama is so key.
What I hear is detaching your emotions, separating you articulated it very, very well. Separating your emotions from the decision making. I think there's a parallel to that in our life as well. We work in addiction recovery. I tell guys all the time, right? Your use with pornography, it is never a rational decision. It is 100% driven by emotion. Like you're looking to escape a certain feeling and you just don't have maybe the bandwidth or what I would say is emotional processing tools to regulate it in real time. In terms of a practicality for somebody here, like to separate the data from the drama, how do you guide somebody through detaching their emotions when they're a small business owner? This is what they've dedicated their life to doing. Like, how do we detach ourselves from something that really is, in our eyes, maybe it's purpose, mission driven. Like it is the thing we are most emotional about.
Yeah. Yeah. And there, let me be very clear. There's nothing wrong with emotions. Like I'm not one of those knuckleheads that's going to be like, boys don't cry, suck it up, buttercup. Like that's not me. Like God built us to have emotions. Jesus displayed every single emotion in the human spectrum, from, sorrow, Jesus wept, to when he's, homeboys flipping tables over in front of the synagogue, right? And everything in between. That's what's so beautiful about that. So we are designed with emotion. So I'm not saying get rid of the emotions. That's what builds our humanity and our relatability. However, when it comes to decision making, especially in a business case, we need to get back to the numbers. So that's the framework I created that's really powerful for a lot of my clients that I work with, is my HITS framework, HITS. And the first part of the HITS framework, which is so critical, which so many high performers just blow by because we're used to being able to grind. The H stands for halt. Like, hit the brakes, dude. Just halt. Give yourself a pause, whether that's a couple deep breaths, box breathing, whether that's just hit the brakes, because so often we react, right? Reactions are involuntary. We just, it's a knee jerk. When we halt, that gives us the opportunity to respond, and responds are intentional. So that's number one, the first thing to do. So it's not about reducing the impact or the power or the importance in our life of whatever it is that we're working on. But it's a matter of halting and giving ourselves that space. So then we can do what the I is in hits, which is identify what's immediately important. Because we got no problem taking action a lot of times, right? But what we need to do a lot of time is separate the static in our head. So when we can halt, we can give ourselves that little bit of breathing room and just be like, all right, wait a minute, what is immediately important right now? Because not all movement equals progress. Like we all know that. So if we can just build in that little bit of space and we can identify what's immediately important, those are the first two steps that, regardless of how important something is, whether it's business or it's a, making sure you respond correctly to a loved one, like halt and just identify what's immediately important right now. What's that person need from me right now? How can I best situate myself to serve right now?
Yeah, yeah. Good place to stop here. I do want to get to the TS though. I love the first two parts of this though. The hold. It reminds me of a quote from Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning. Between stimulus response, there is a space, and in that space lies our ability to choose. And it's in our choice that sits our freedom, right? It's like having the ability to pause in a moment. Something from the outside, right? It stimulates you, and like you said, oftentimes our first reaction is kind of innate within us. Like that's how kind of animals live. They just kind of naturally react. But humans had this capacity to pause, become self-aware, and then I think respond. And in that response, you attach rational decision making to it. And then I think they identify what's important. Right? So many people, especially in today's world, there's so much information from YouTube, from social media. Now we have the advent of AI, and you can get just information and questions answered on a dime. Sometimes consumption feels like progress. I call it mental masturbation. I'm going to sit here and watch 2 hours of YouTube videos on how to maybe set up a Facebook campaign when all I really had to do was log into Meta and actually set up the campaign. And I'll learn more in the doing than the actual consumption. On the business side of things, what are some of the things that are, because I see it in my world, right? People will watch videos, they'll read books, they'll listen to the podcast that feels like movement forward. From your perspective and the people that you're seeing work with, what are the things that they're getting caught up with? Maybe not causing them mental masturbation, but feels like progress when all it really is time wasting consumption.
Great question. Um, I think a lot of people get so excited about what's next. Like, 'cause a lot of people I work with, you don't get to be a founder or business owner or executive, like if you don't have a pretty good imagination. Like they might not always identify with creative. They're like, "What do you mean? I'm not creative. I'm a doctor. Like I'm not creative. I'm not a photographer or artist." It's like, no, but you have ideas. So it can be so. It's very easy for people to get spooled up on an idea and just kind of go for it, right? That shiny object syndrome. So it doesn't matter like what level people are at, but and unfortunately, like there's a whole industry out there, like social media, to get your attention, hook you, and then get you to go after the next best thing. And a lot of times they do that by making you feel lack. Like, oh, hey, look what everyone else is doing. Wouldn't that be cool if you could do it too? And having people just go after that instead of being like, wait a minute, let me follow this thread through that I've been working on and follow that through to either to completion. And by completion, it doesn't necessarily mean success. Things don't always work out. Like I've got a stack of things that didn't work out, right? And that's an important skill too, is to recognize like, all right, this has run its course. We need to change lanes here. But you at least need to run it through to completion, whether that's success or, deciding to call it quits and just take it as a learning experience. So that shiny object syndrome is real and something we need to maintain vigilance of.
Yeah, no, I relate a lot to that. I've been in business entrepreneurship for 13 plus years now. We're kind of on maybe our fourth kind of idea. And this is the one that we've been at the longest and have had the most success with. But I think one thing with the entrepreneurial spirit or kind of that entrepreneurial persona, like it is a very high dopaminergic person, right? We thrive on excitement, risk taking, high levels of dopamine. And sometimes doing the same thing for long periods of time doesn't produce the reward. Like you need that new thing. It's like, because the new thing creates more dopamine than doing the same thing over and over and over again. But I can tell you, in my career, in business life, we've had the greatest periods of success and growth when I found one thing that's working and I just double, triple, quadruple down on it for a long period of time. It's when I get scatterbrained. I'm like, let's build the next back end system. Let's build the new community. Let's build the new funnel. Let's test the different campaign. It's like, that's when things really start to kind of rumble and fall apart underneath me. It's like, no, find the one thing that works and just consistently do that. I reference bodybuilding, same thing there. It's like, find one training protocol, like just go to the gym and just get better at doing that one thing. You don't need 17 different training programs. So I love that. So we got halt, you kind of pause, and then you identify what's most important. The next step in HITS is T. What's the T?
Take decisive action. It's like once you identify, like you said, like it's great to sit and read the books and watch the YouTube videos and read the blogs and all the things, but until you actually take action, like decisive action, like make a decision and go with it. And one of the rules I teach is actually by General Colin Powell. He had what he called the 40-70 rule. And he said, as leaders, we need to understand that we will never, ever, ever have all the information we need to make a decision. So what we need to do is we need to set some parameters to take decisive action. We need to recognize that we're never going to have 100% of the information. So if you have, at least 40% of the information, up to 70%, that's where you just need to rely on your training, your experience, and be like, hey, look, I'm not going to have all the information. So if I can get in like the 40 to 70% zone, that's going to allow me to take decisive action. And then once you take action, then you get into a loop, and like you're continually like observing, orienting, making a decision, taking action again.
That's where I think so many people get stuck, the decision part of taking action. Because in order to truly be decisive, like, you got to cut one of those things off. You're like, I'm going this way, and I'm cutting off the option of going the other. That's where very few people, or most people, get stuck. So HIT, last bit of here is S.
Yeah, set a deadline. Set a deadline, and if you really want to go the pro move, set a deadline and build some accountability into it. Like be like, hey, Frank, I need to get this marketing plan out. I'm committing to doing it by next Wednesday at 5 p.m. I'm going to text you and let you know whether or not I did it. Like, if you want to watch the needle move forward, like build some accountability in with a trusted advisor and set a deadline. And I always, my clients like always look at me like I'm bonkers whenever we're on a call, and I'm like, all right, let's go over the actions. And I'm like, all right, what are we going to do, Craig? And he's like, all right, I'm going to, get that new hire orientation lined up. I'm like, okay, by when? By the end of the week. Okay, what's that mean? Well, but by Friday. Okay, what time Friday? End of day. Okay, what's that mean? What do you mean, what's that mean? By the end of the day? I'm like, no. What time? Well, whenever I finish. No. What time? They're like 4 p.m. I'm like, all right, what time zone are we talking about? Because you're in California, I'm in Delaware. And that comes back, like that level of specificity might seem like really anal and just, nitnoid. But when you get that crystal clear on it and know someone else knows that accountability taps into a primal part of our brain, because one of our biggest fears as humans is to be ostracized. And we know at a primal level that if we continually don't do what we say we're going to do, there's a very real threat that we're going to be ostracized like that. And that harkens back to the days when, like, if you were kicked out of the tribe, the group, the clan, the club, the kingdom, you're going to be dinner for something with fur and teeth. It taps into that. So when you say to another person like, hey, Frank, I'm going to do this by 4 p.m. Friday, East Coast time, that puts some pressure on, and that will really motivate you to get moving. So if you want to get moving on stuff, set a deadline and build some accountability into it.
Yeah. I think it's Parkinson's law that work will fill the allotted time that you give it, right? So if you don't set a deadline, you will procrastinate it till the day's end. And I love for you, it's the precision of language that you're speaking to. We've had a lot of military leaders, and have a great friend, Larry Yacht, that was a high level ranking officer in the Navy SEALs, and this is one thing he harped on. We've had him on the show a couple times. We did a
I think I know Larry.
Yeah, Larry's incredible. Building successful teams. SEAL team training was one of his post military organizations. But is this precision and clarity? I know you have a background in working with military teams as well as in NASA. Is this something that you've taken from your previous work and now you brought into your executive coaching? And if you can, walk us through what that journey was from going 15 years in NASA military testing to deciding, hey, yeah, I want to work with leaders and founders.
Yeah. So to answer your first question, yeah, that was 100% something I learned, that level of precision, and it came about. I was the person giving the bogus, flim flam deadlines. We were working a joint program we were trying to get Army, or I'm sorry, not Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps fighter pilots all to agree on something. And I love my fixed wing fast movers, but there's a lot of egos in those calls. Like trying to get them all to agree on something was very difficult. And then we added in, we had allies across the world, their air crews chiming in. So the program quickly became an unequivocal mess, right? Behind schedule, things weren't working, and the government brought in, some baddie of a program manager who was known for herding the cats. And I'll never forget, I was on phone call one day with a giant team, like we were a worldwide team. He's like, "All right, Mollura, when are you going to have that test procedure done?" I'm like, "By end of day Thursday." He goes, "The hell's that mean?" I said, "By the end of the day." He's like, "What time?" I'm like, 4. He goes, "And?" I go, "And what?" He goes, "What time zone?" And I go, "What?" And I said, he goes, "Hey, knucklehead." He goes, "We got people on this call right now in Hawaii to England. So I don't want the guys in England waiting for your test plan at 9 p.m. at night. And I don't want the Hawaii guys thinking it's coming in their time and everybody's off the same page." So that's where I learned. I actually got my butt handed to me on a phone call in front of everybody. So I was like, okay. But then guess what? The dude got the project together and got it moving. So I'm like, all right, maybe there's something here. So yeah, that specific example is definitely where that came from. And, this mentality of let's separate the data from the drama. The phrasing of that came from one of my coaches, but it fit very much into what we were doing because our job was to make sure that things worked at the system level. So before we handed it to a fighter pilot or we crashed a robot into Mars, they gave whatever whiz bang thing we were working on to our team, and we had to make sure it worked. And it was all about data. It's not like, well, I think this is going to work or this feels like it should be strong enough. It's like, there ain't no time for that. What's the data say? What's the truth? So that's where my background came from. And the way I found myself there was because I took a chance and taught rock climbing in college, right? That's how I ended up working there because I wasn't anywhere close to a 4.0. We'll just leave it at that. I got the engineering degree and I was pretty psyched with a B average. But what got me the job was a former special forces guy looked at the resume and he saw that I taught director of rock climbing. And I asked him, I said, "Why'd you hire me?" I said, "I'm not super smart by books." He's this real gruff old SF guy from Vietnam era. He goes, "I don't need another damn egghead in this team." He goes, "I need someone I can send out and across the world and not get themselves killed or get me killed." He's like, "You seem to fit that bill. Welcome aboard." I'm like, okay. So that's what I did for 15 years. And we started this conversation out about people, especially men, that just throw themselves into their work to avoid some kind of pain. And brother, that was me. Um, on paper, I had the most badass job in the world. I was leading teams, testing things before we put them on a rocket ship and sending them to Mars. But I never felt like I was worthy. So every time a difficult project or mission would come up, I'd raise my hand. I'd be like, "I want to do it." Why? Because subconsciously, looking back on it, I realized I was trying to validate myself. And I thought, you know what? Maybe if I'm able to pull this off, Ooh, and it's also potentially hazardous. Cool. Maybe there's bonus points for that. Maybe if I can do it, then maybe then I'll be worthy. Maybe then I'll be worthy of feeling like I'm lovable or feeling like I'm good enough. But guess what? It was the exact opposite. Every time I was successful, I built this house of cards up higher and higher and higher and higher and higher until all of a sudden, like you're up there and I felt completely unqualified. And you're just in this like tower, like up in the breeze, thinking like, oh my gosh, well, if I screw up now, now the fall is going to be so much harder. So I completely relate with anybody that's out there that is very performance driven, but they're not being driven by the right reasons. They're driven by trying to find self-worth, and I've lived that, and it's exhausting, and everything just turns gray, and it's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, and I don't think it's sustainable. I think eventually, what I hear you speaking to is like your identity is lacking in real worth. So it doesn't matter how much you achieve on the outside, you will never accept it unconsciously because it's like I see myself as unworthy, so it doesn't matter. That's why the marker keeps moving, and eventually it's going to be burnout, it's going to be self-sabotage, it's going to be complete collapse, rock bottom, like the risk of losing everything. I mean, I've lived that out in 2018, had a business collapse, hundreds of thousands of dollars gone, lost my entire health, relationships broken, family life dismantled. It was like I reached a point where I had chased everything that I thought the world would see me as successful, but I had this like kid from the inside that was running from pain for 2 decades.
Yeah. Yep. That was my life. Like those of you that are watching us on video, like two of the things framed behind me are letters of commendation from the Department of Defense that me and my team members received for a couple jobs we worked on. Like tremendous honor. When they handed that to me, I was having a panic attack because it's right before they called my name, Frank. I thought, oh my God, they're not going to give this letter to me. They're going to say in front of the whole company, you know what, John, we realize you've been BSing everybody all these years. You don't deserve this. They, of course, didn't because the thing we worked on was out doing what it was supposed to do. So I don't even remember receiving that letter of commendation. I think I walked to the side, waited for the rest of the team to get called, left the celebration we were having, took both those letters of commendation, put them in manila folder, and just stuffed them in the back of my desk drawer for a decade. I didn't want to see them. I didn't believe it. You know, it became, instead of like a celebration of what our team had achieved, I looked at it as a reminder of I still wasn't good enough. And all the other letters of commendations I got from the years from NASA and whatever, they went in that same folder and just never saw the light of day till I, saw the proverbial light and started seeing myself differently.
I think a lot of guys are going to relate to this. How is this affecting? I mean, you're out here, you're chasing success, the next accomplishment, so people accept you. What's going on at home life? Do you have, I know you're a father, you're a married man. Like, was family around at the time? Like, and how was this impacting how you were showing up in the relationships with the people that were most important to you?
Yeah. So I operated with elite teams. I was elite in everything I did. And that also included being an elite asshole. Right. And that's the way I protected myself. Right. I thought if I can push people away before they get a chance to hurt me, then that I'm calling that a win. Well, you end up very isolated very quickly, and no one wants to, play in the sandbox with you. By the grace of God, like my wife and I, we're going to be celebrating 23 years of marriage here in a couple weeks from the time of this recording. Yeah, it's quite amazing considering who I used to be. And I remember I was sitting down with my pastor one time, telling him my story, and he goes, "I've met your wife. She is incredibly intelligent. Why'd she stay with you?" Pastor Kenneth doesn't pull any punches, man. And I said, well, I think the only thing I can attribute that to is I was literally chasing the next thing all across the world, where that was, flying into Antarctica for test operations or spending weeks in England testing something. I was never home. So I think that by the grace of God, like my wife never really had to put up with me full force for the first few years of our marriage because I was never home. I was always, rolling stone, and I'm not sure when I'll be back. We'll see how this goes, kind of thing. So looking back on it, like it breaks my heart to see like how little of me she got to see. And fortunately, I had my literal come to Jesus moment about 9 months after our first child was born when I hit rock bottom. So my kids are all too young to remember me like that. Um, so I'm very thankful that I got myself turned around before my kids were able to see that side of me.
Yeah, that's powerful. Um, John, I think one thing that a lot of guys that will go through, maybe not this exact scenario, but they've reached a point where they've woken up that they haven't been really living in alignment with the man that they know they should be. Now they feel a lot of pain and regret towards the people that they've hurt in the past. And sometimes that can carry a lot of emotional weight and baggage. You obviously are standing here today as a different man than you used to be. I don't know if that's a language that you would use, but I see you as gone through an identity transformation. I wouldn't call you a rebuilt man, but that's what we, walk our men through, is letting go of this past version. But there's got to be this integration of that old self because, yeah, you did still accomplish a lot. So, how can the current John accept the good from the past John while letting go of maybe some of the things that need to be let go of?
Yeah, and that's where yeah, that's where our awareness can sometimes cause us an issue is when we're aware of like who we used to be and how we used to show up and the impact that it used to have. And also like as you know, as someone who's gone through a drastic change, like there's the impact that you had no idea that you were causing, like this chaos that you were causing in other people. And perhaps those are the ones that have hurt me the most when people have been like, hey, when you said that to me in like seventh grade, like, cause this goes way back, like me showing up like that, like those are the ones that hurt the most. So the key is whenever you have this awareness of, you know, the person you were and the person that you're becoming, the key is not to let yourself slide into judgment, right? Because at the intersection of awareness and judgment, that's where the critic lives. And the critic is the one that says, you'll never change. Look what you did. Look what you screwed up. And the critic's never going to go away because the critic, when you get down to it at a fundamental level, the critic's actually trying to protect you. It's just doing it in a very terrible way. It's making you feel bad, or like creating these fear-based scenarios. So when you can understand that the critic is actually trying to protect you, and then the way I turn the volume down of the critic and move out of awareness and judgment and into awareness and curiosity, the way I say to the critic is like, okay, what would I say to a friend right now? Like if you and I were having a conversation, or one of my buddies, Matt or Jeremy, called me and they said, hey, I'm wrestling with this. I just can't get my head out of this. I'd be like, all right, well, let's own it, dude. Like that happened. Like we live in the real world. That happened. Let's talk about all the things you've been working on so that doesn't happen again, or you can make amends for that. Like get yourself back in that like fact-based thing. And when you can do that, now you start shifting into curiosity instead of judgment. Like, what have I been doing? What can I do? I love one of your recent episodes. You were talking about, taking like when men have found freedom from pornography and masturbation, all that kind of stuff. Now they can rechannel that creativity into something like very powerful. And that's what we need to do. We need to shift out of that judgment into curiosity. Okay, that happened. What can I do to prevent that? What can I do to make amends? And I'm not responsible for that person forgiving me, right? That's up to God. God will work on with that. It's up to me to owning that mistake.
Yeah, that's one thing we see in a lot of men is they're lacking a bigger purpose. There's like they went down this path of life building success, career, whatever it was. Obviously, there's some needs for that, but they've climbed the ladder and they've checked every box, but it wasn't for a lot of the right reasons. So they tend to fall into these destructive habits and patterns. And sometimes for a lot of our men, it's like it's finding more purpose in their life. I'm curious with you, like you work with business owners, like do you ever find or do you ever have a conversation with somebody where it's like, maybe this business isn't the right thing for you? Like is there a pivot that they got to make? Like this is something that you were chasing purely money. That was my first business. My first company I ever started was tickets and entertainment. I had helped build another one to 5+ million a year. And I was supposed to be brought in as a partner there. There were some decisions made at the top. They're like, we're going to let you go, but we're going to release you from your not compete with us. So go do this own thing. Like you had the skills and the ability to go build this thing on your own, go do it. I wasn't passionate really about sports and entertainment. I was passionate about sports, but like not the ticketing and entertainment. It was purely money. And I wrestled because for like 5 years, it was all about just making as much money, but it lacked any real depth. I wasn't really helping anybody. And I had some crisis moments that I went through. So like the next company that I started was more an integration of a passion of mine, which was health and fitness and bodybuilding. I'm curious with you, like, do you ever have conversations with people where the ceiling is you're just not passionate enough in this area? And I don't think you should just follow a passion, but like you need to pivot and find something that's more purpose driven for you.
Yeah, and I lived that life. So in 2009, I lost one of my best childhood friends to an intentional overdose. And that was like right after my our first child was born. So like I was already freaking out about being a dad. Like I thought like I'm gonna blow this, I'm gonna screw it up. Everything that happened to me in my life, like I'm just destined to repeat all these patterns, like all those negative voices. And then a couple months after we had our first kid, we're just like, I was freaking out about um then I lost my friend to that overdose. And it just put me in this place where like I was like, I don't know, maybe he had it right by checking out. I don't know what to do. And I just remember my wife and daughter were out in the morning. I was getting ready for work and I was like, I don't know how to do. I was just in this habitual fog after losing my buddy. And I hadn't prayed in probably 13 years because I went to Catholic high school. And when I graduated, I said, nope, not for me. I was exposed and experienced some things there, saw some things there that I was like, I don't want any part of this Jesus thing. Like, this is a sham. So I identify very much with the Apostle Paul, right? Who, before he became a follower of Jesus, like his job was to execute Christians, followers of Christ. And I never signed anybody's death warrant, but what I would do is it like during that period when I was godless and prayerless and just angry with God, I would say to anybody, like if I found out they were religious, it didn't matter. Like if they were Jewish, Christian, Muslim, I'd be like, what? You too weak to do life without the crutch of a God? Like I'd say that to people, dude. Meanwhile, like I'm completely falling apart inside, right? Like I'm just a mess. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so I hit that rock bottom moment after my friend's death and birth of our first child. And I tell all that about me being like anti religions because here I am in like one of my darkest moments and the serenity prayer just popped right in my head. Right. You know, strength, courage, wisdom. As soon as I said in the wisdom to know the difference, like I felt like this warm sensation come over me from like head to toe. And I was like, okay, um, I've either just lost my mind, like this is it, like I finally cracked, or like maybe there's something to this God thing. So from that day in the summer of 2009 was when the proverbial scale started falling from my eyes. It's like before God can do work through you, he's got to do a lot of work in you. Well, homeboy had a lot of work to do in me. And the first thing God started showing me was how I was showing up in the world. Like I said, I was an elite a-hole, right? So here I am, 2009. I'm starting to get myself in order. And this was like a years long process, like leaning into my faith, learning what it was like to actually be loved. Like that was never taught to me in my upbringing, like from the church standpoint. And like started enlisting like counselors, mentors, like, and just learning and pretty much becoming the person who God always intended me to be. And then the company I worked for was taken over by venture capitalists, this engineering company so it became completely discongruent with who I was and who the company, the direction they went. So I say all that to say, it got to the point where I'm like, this job, which seems so cool on paper, is totally out of alignment with who I know I truly am. So I did what any, respectable father of three, I thought would do. I took another higher paying engineering job. So now I'm like making six figures, getting flown around the world first class to rep the company, and love the people. Have never been so miserable in all my life at work. Like, I was making bank and like, treated really great on paper, but like I'd come home and it was just like, I wasn't the dad I wanted to be. I didn't want to show my kids like it's okay to be miserable and have your skin have the power of a wet ashtray for six figures. So eventually my wife is the one who said, like, you don't look real good. I go, I'm not doing okay. And she said, well, what if you turned your side hustle of photography into your full-time gig? Because I've been building a photography business on the side for years. Like, that was always my creative outlet. Because a lot of engineers I worked with, like, they had like muscle cars or, were private pilots. I'm like, I don't know. Nah, no thanks. I just always had like, I love music and photography, like very creative, artistic endeavors. So I always felt like a bit of a black sheep, in the engineering world. So yeah, in 2017, my wife and I prayerfully made the decision that I was going to turn my side hustle into my full-time gig. And that was that. So it was a very strategic move. Like, it wasn't just like an overnight thing. Like, I've been building it for years. So for anybody that like has put in all this work to something and they're like, well, I've got too much sunk cost in it now. Like, I've lived that life, and that's not a way to live, to just stay stuck there because you think you should.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate you sharing that story. You mentioned John a couple times, mentors and therapists, and even your pastor. A lot of men out here are doing life alone, lone wolf syndrome, and even more at the top, right? Especially the successful guy. Like, a lot of people, he doesn't relate to. What's the danger of a guy going at life alone, staying isolated, especially when he's operating in these overstimulated, kind of survival modes?
Yeah, it's not sustainable. And when you get into leadership, that's one of the challenging parts of it, right? Like, you can't just spill your guts to the people that you're leading all the time. Like, you got to hold it together for them. That's why it becomes so important to seek out a tribe of people, a community of people, because we're not meant to do life alone, right? Like lone wolves, well, they'll survive out in the wild, but they're not going to thrive. So it becomes a matter of like, how can you seek out people that are like-minded, and not just to be an echo chamber, but like-minded with the same values, right? Like, how can you build a tribe up around yourself? And one of my favorite authors, John Acuff, who a couple of his books are behind me here, he always says, if you find yourself without a tribe or without anybody pouring into you, pour more into other people. Begin to pour into other people. Like, if you're part of a faith community, just can you be a greeter? Can you mop the floors? Like, until you find like where you fit in? Like, if you have a talent, like, cool, offer it up and start pouring into other people, not so they can take advantage of you. That's not what this is about. It's about pouring into other people, because once you start doing that, beautiful things start to happen. Other people are then going to come into your life, right? That are then going to be able to pour into you, because we are not meant to do life alone by any means. But it does take a little bit of effort to find that tribe, especially as you become, in leadership positions.
Yeah. Yeah. We have an entire month within our 12-week curriculum that we walk guys through. Month 2 is, I won't want to say 100%, but a huge emphasis and focus on service, leadership, small random acts of kindness, rebuilding relationships. Like, for a guy that's struggling and wrestling with who he's showing up as. Begin to show up for other people, and you'll instantly begin to see yourself through a different lens and perspective.
Yeah, we teach that in the Pain to Purpose course, facilitated church. That's one of the things that's really part of the healing journey, like of not wasting your pain, taking that pain you've walked through and maybe are still walking through and pouring into other people because man, something just really will light up inside of you.
Yeah. And that's the key. I'm glad you said that because you don't need to have it all figured out. Sometimes, like if you're just a step or two ahead of a person that you used to be, that's far enough along for them to see hope in you. And you're far enough along for you to have some real valuable, helpful advice for that person. If you're too far away, you can't relate to their problems. They can't see the hope because it's like he's so far away. But the closer you are to somebody's pain and problem, the more valuable your help is going to be to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the greatest lies we tell ourselves. I'm not, who am I to do that? Well, you don't have to have it all figured out, but you know, you definitely know more than the person 5 years younger than you following you up. So pour into them.
Yeah. 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 John, I love this conversation, man. We obviously want to point the guys to learn more about you. And if anybody's interested in working with you, we'll have your websites and all your social channels plugged down there below. Last few questions as we wrap it up. You know, you work with leaders in leadership. What does leadership look like in today's world? And, you know, maybe what are the top 3 traits or characteristics that somebody needs if they're going to be an effective leader?
Yeah, yeah, and let me level set because a lot of times when I say I'm like a leadership coach, people automatically like disqualify themselves. They're like, "Oh, I'm not a leader. I'm not a leader. I don't have a sales team. I don't have a whatever." I'm like, "Well, you being a leader is you can be the leader of one person." So I always talk about leaders being responsible for 3 things to build trust with their team, right? We have to provide clarity as a leader. We have to provide direction and we need to provide support because when we can provide clarity, direction, and support to our teams, that enables the teams then to take action, the teams then to stay aligned with the direction that was provided clear. And then ultimately, you are empowering your teams to make decisions. People always say, wait a minute, isn't making decisions the leader's job? And I'm like, no, the leader's job is, yeah, to make the decisions to get the direction and clarity to get that. But when it comes down to it, you want the teams that are there executing the work, you want them to feel empowered and supported to make the decisions on their own so then they can build themselves as leaders. So, yeah, characteristics of a leader: clarity, direction, and support for the people that you're leading.
Yeah. Without the team being able to make decisions and take action, you become the bottleneck. Because if they got to rely on you to make every decision, what's going to happen when you're not there or available? Like things are going to be delayed. I mentioned Larry at the beginning. He wrote the book on leadership. The ability to coordinate action towards a specific desired outcome. I mean, it's so clear, and it runs aligned with clarity, direction, support here. So, John, this is incredible. Once again, we'll have John's website, his socials plugged down there in the show notes for all you guys. Check his work out. And if you're interested in getting work with him, he'll have some ways that you can reach out and contact what they're doing over there. But last and final question here. The title of our podcast is called The Superhuman Life. You know, it's been a mission, a journey that I've been on and kind of discovering that for myself, but I love to get the guest takes. So we end every episode here with the same and final question. John, through your lens of leadership and kind of development, how would you define living a superhuman life?
A life of awareness, the autopilot that we find ourselves on, especially in a society that is catering to keep you on autopilot and not questioning and not aware of your surroundings and how your actions are impacting others in your future. Like superhuman is being aware and then being able to having the courage to take action.
I love it. I love it. Guys, check out John. And as always, if you're getting value out of these episodes and conversations, we ask you to support the show. First off, if you haven't yet done so, make sure to leave us that 5-star rating and written review. It'll tell the algorithm how valuable these conversations are. It will help us reach more people. And most importantly, if somebody in your life needs to hear this conversation, do us the favor and them the blessing by sharing today's episode with them. But as always, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. For John Mollura, your head coach, Coach Frank Rich, we love you guys. We'll see you in the next one.